So another objective of the soul is imperial justice, which really makes sense for today's time, because there is so much injustice in the world, and that's not the same thing as fairness, because that's a whole kind of different thing. A lot of people have the need for things to be fair, which is different than this imperial justice, which is a higher level of justice.
Imperial
And
justice to me means Mother Earth is getting ready to do some cleanup on Isle Planet Human. Anyway, keep
well,
going. Imperial
yeah.
justice
So
is coming
so
in.
it's about righting our wrongs, so to speak, getting our humanity back on course again. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big undertaking. So, but our spirits come down here to also do that, to right our course if we're going the wrong way, so to speak, and going off course. And we've definitely been going off course a lot. Welcome to the Let's Be Real podcast, genuine conversations for authentic living. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Lisa Allshafer, empowerment life coach and author.
And I'm Sondra Pariser, health and wellness entrepreneur and truth seeker and truth speaker.
And today's episode is about exploring the human experience from a higher soul perspective.
And Lisa, I think you can agree. You and I have both had a really interesting week. And this was a good thing because you're working on launching your parenting program.
Yep.
And I'm working on God knows what, but life is moving in full swing. And I've had a pretty heavy week where I was dealing with a friend's transition, a friend dying, my sister having to undergo yet another um, pretty intense surgery with tumors growing back. So in addition to all the other things that are happening and following the Earth, Moon, and the stars, really the stars and the cosmos, and just really deep, profound week for both of us, I think.
Yep.
And so when we were talking about what our podcast wanted to be, I just kind of let it be like what's inspiring, and I did a little meditation, and so here we go. We get to talk about just kind of what does it mean to be human and our soul and our spirit. And so we thought we would take some big time vulnerability and go to explore some of
Yeah.
these more deep subjects.
Well, and it's such a not only deep but vast subject.
Yes.
The connection between our soul and our spirit and our human
Mm-hmm.
existence, our physical existence, and how they all interconnect, and how a lot of people confuse the soul and the spirit as the same things, but they're really not. And we're going to go into that. But why don't you share a little bit about some of the experiences you had kind of leading up to today?
Yeah, totally. Cause it's, yeah. So I don't know if I want to talk about the card that I pulled in the inspiration. I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
So, one of my closest human travelers in this world, and Lisa, you know this, I don't have very many. You know who they all are. um, but she's a very spiritual person, very connected, medium friend. And her and I have the most outstanding relationship and conversations that really push each other to think about the box, our bodies, right? Our why are we here? Just fascinating conversations. There's no judgment, and we just explore. And one of her closest soul friends, who I also know, um, I think it was either the 8th of January or the 9th of January. So just a few weeks ago, um, I get a call from my girlfriend and our mutual friend, but her really good friend was admitted to the ER. And while she had been sick, she's young 50s, mother of 3, teenage daughter, and grandkids on the way.
Oh.
Um, she went in because she just was, I think it was just throwing up and all of the stuff coming out of the body. And they admitted her and did CT scans. And so my girlfriend says, "Hey, can you tap in on your airplane ride home and see, are you getting anything?" And when we care so deeply about people, we're attached to the outcome. And so even though she possesses this skill far more than I'm just starting to practice. but I said, of course, because it's been getting stronger and I've been able to really tap in and feel people. Um, and so here I am on the airplane. I'm like, all right, well, let's see what we got. And I tapped in and I instantly felt, ooh, she's out of here. And not in a bad way. Like, she came to have the experience she's supposed to have, and the human body experience for her is over. And that's just what I felt. Now, again, I haven't exercised this, and we've talked this through this whole experience. um the feeling that I got, it was really peaceful, even though it's really sad. And so I got on the phone with my girlfriend and I said, I don't know really what to say, and except for, this is what I got. You asked me to tap in, and so I did, and here's what happened. And and there was 9 days of up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down until um I think she transitioned maybe 2 or 3 days ago. Very fast. It was so fast. And in the middle of me feeling that, um then my sister with her cancer. And while I was playing around tapping in over there, I thought, I wonder if I can tap into my sister, because I get this random text. This is, God bless her. She just lets us know she's going in to have a surgery, right? It's like, it's not a pre-planned surgery. It's in the text was that the tumors had grown back in her bladder and they were going to go in and remove them. And so I was like, oh, what is happening? All right, well, let me see if I can tap in there. And what I got was, the feeling that I got from tapping into her was not, her body's done, right? Her spirit goes on, soul goes on. It was, oh, this is going to be a really hard, very restrictive, very committed, very laser focused on healing her body completely. And it was 6 to 8 months of just, no sugar, very restrictive diet, combining the best of Western and Eastern medicine, or however you want to call it. Um, but she'll be okay. But I just sat with this, like, oh, she's just going to have a tough go. It's just for her husband, her kids, but her. And I felt that. I really, really felt that in a way I've never felt. Just, ugh. So then I had a really bad day. My sister came through the surgery fine. And just this morning, the first thing I woke up to is they got it all. It was less invasive than they thought it would be. And it's not stage 1 cancer anymore. It's one cancer before that. And so she doesn't have to do any chemo, any radiation. She doesn't have to have her bladder essentially rebuilt. So she'll keep doing what she'll do.
Wow.
And that to me was like, whoa, I can feel it and it's real. And that, in addition to a spiritual retreat that popped out of nowhere, where I get to
Well,
go.
first let's just really acknowledge your sister for all that she's going through and all that she's coming out of in a
And
much better
she's
than
so
anticipated
positive.
way. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yes, I love you, sister. And in case you don't want to know me to say your name, I won't, but you know who you are. And and honoring my mom through that process, part of that sadness that I sat with was not just it's for what she's going to go through, but it was like, I got to call my mom. Like, I got to call my mom. This is so intense. How is she doing? That's her daughter. And it's very helpless, because there's nothing we could have done to help my friend who transitioned. There's nothing anybody can do except for honor where someone is at, hold space, and just allow them their own free will experience in the universe. So
Yeah. Well,
lots
and
of
it's
good
good that
stuff.
you, yeah, it's that you picked up on that she was ready to go. The friend who passed over,
Mm-hmm.
that she was ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
the
Oh,
the
yeah.
decision was kind of made,
Yeah.
and that's really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people don't really kind of look at it from that perspective, is that they're done here. Time to move on to next, whatever, whatever next is for them, and return
But
back
that was
to.
it's interesting because if I would have gone into that, however, my girlfriend asked me to go and tap in, it wasn't to um I could feel her relief, her peace, her she's like, I'm out, man. I'm good. It's all
Yeah,
good, And
yeah,
then when you talk about the kids and the grandkids, it's like they too are on their own soul journey.
yeah,
And yeah, and then that takes us to our whole conversation today, which is what does it mean to be human? Why are we
yeah.
here?
Right, right, absolutely. So I'm just gonna take a moment and just help you to sit back a little bit so you're more in the frame. You're really close to the camera, and so you're going below the camera.
Oh, I can't even see
So
myself. Isn't that so funny? I can
yeah, so
finally
maybe there's
not
a
see myself. Let me just
yes,
do this because I don't want it to interfere with my microphone
yep,
and my proximity with microphone. So,
better because we want to see that whole beautiful face of yours.
oh, you're so sweet. You didn't want me to cut off half.
Yes, exactly.
All right.
So, okay, yeah. Anyway, so back on track here. Yeah, so it's interesting how today's podcast came to be because I had just had a conversation yesterday with someone about the soul and the spirit, and um, that was David Armstrong, who was a big contributor to the book Journey with an Angel, right? Which is everyone always sees, but Journey with an Angel. And then you sent, yeah, there we go. And then you sent what you wanted to do today for the podcast, which was absolutely in alignment. And I said, Sondra, go read chapter 4 because we're completely aligned with, what you wanted the podcast to be about. I wasn't thinking about it for the podcast, but I was talking about it with David yesterday and so forth. And
Amazing.
then, I mean, I reread chapter 4 because, I have everything memorized, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Sondra was sending to do. So that's actually a beautiful thing, that to bring that all together now to share with, everybody that's listening, and just to
Oh,
talk about it with each other. Yeah.
well, yeah. And just because we've had you and I, like, that is amazing. So, of course I have the book
Hmm.
signed by you to me. Um, I was at
Yeah.
your, what do you call it? A book launch?
Book launch. Yeah.
Yeah, and I look at this book and I'm like, it's so old. It's not old, but 20.
2015. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's old, and there's so much information coming in now about exactly what was channeled by David and by you years and years ago. So I just anyway, I'm having a bit of and I think there's a lot of cosmic stuff happening too, where planets are trining, and there's just a lot of wonderful things that are happening, but they cause for massive intensity. And my master astrologer, Joni Patry, if you're on her Patreon, she's got all sorts of stuff going on. But every day she gives you a synopsis on, all right, well, here's what to expect. And it's so great for me because it gives me a little bit of clarity and kind of a heads up. And so if I get a little too emotional, or, I get butthurt about something really stupid, I'm like, okay, ah, you know, Uranus is doing X, Y, or Z or whatever. And I laugh. But
Uranus.
yesterday's, I
The old
wake up,
Uranus joke.
yeah, we're right. Well, no pun intended, but kind of pun intended. How funny. Um, so yesterday I wake up in the morning and I try and do positive things in the morning so I can set my day up. But I just have been feeling, and Lisa, this is what we were talking about a couple days back. Like I had this sadness that, and you and I jumped on a phone and we honored it. It was like, I don't want to stuff it down. There's no need to stuff it down. It just is what it is. It's just sadness. There's just a lot of heavy, heavy stuff. And, so anyway, the message for yesterday morning on what the planets were doing is that if you are not living a purpose-driven life, you're really going to struggle, because no matter what you're doing as a job or a career, like all of these things, there's a lot of that. And maybe this is another message for anybody listening too. Really start to think about, are you living your life's purpose in your career? And if not, start to pray and meditate about your higher self and your guides are going to jump in, and we're going to talk about that today too, and help direct you in some beautiful ways so we can honor your place on planet Earth right now. But
Yeah.
anyway, yesterday Alan had a real hard day. And I sat him down and I started talking to him, and I didn't bring up, well, the astrology says, or InstaWall, like so funny.
Mhm.
Um, but I sat with him and I let him, like, bring it out. Let me hear all about what's happening. How are you feeling? What's going on? And I just thought, well, there's power in that too. So, all right, let's do a deeper dive.
Yeah, well, what's interesting that you even bring up the book launch is because I had a publishing coach, Patrick Snow, who helped both David and I as we worked on the book together. And he reached out and asked me to be a guest on his podcast Thursday. So I will be on his, he does an author, I guess, once a week, it interviews an author. And
Oh, how
so, yeah.
awesome.
So for those of you interested, it's on my Facebook page, but we'll put a link down below if you're interested in. It's live, so you can actually ask questions and kind of be engaged in the podcast as well. Yeah,
Groovy, groovy, groove. It's
yeah,
all happening.
it is. It is. Well, I think a good place to start as far as understanding kind of the connection between our soul and our spirit and our humanness, our human
Mhm.
existence, is when I met David Armstrong back in 2012. I met you in 2011, I think, is when we came together, Sondra,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah.
Yep.
And so when I met David, I met him actually, him and his wife Meg, in the middle of the Mediterranean. We didn't know each other beforehand. And it was from that meeting, really, that the book was created, the book was born, I guess is probably a better way to say that. And, and so what, why I'm bringing it up now is because David actually had a it's not even a near death experience. It's actually a death experience. And
Mhm.
he remembers the whole thing, which a lot of
Mhm.
people have recollections of part of it and then they come back in. But there's actually quite a bit. I've actually seen some on YouTube of full recollection of their experience on the other side.
Mhm.
And to me, it's like, what a cool experience. Don't want to have it, but cool
Mhm.
experience, not up for that one because, there's a whole lot that goes along with that, recovering from all that kind of stuff. But he remembers so much, and he came back with a wealth of resources around that. And one of the things that he shared with me that we shared in the book is the difference between what is your soul, understanding what your soul
Mhm.
is. And if to put it really simply, your soul is a spark of what he refers to as the master creator. You could say God. And God sends out this spark of itself to learn and grow and bring back and to continue to be in this ongoing progression of learning and not understanding so much, but
Expansion.
learning and growing and evolving and expanding.
Mhm.
And so your soul is a spark of God, and your spirit is a spark of your soul.
I
So
just
now
think
you're
that's so beautiful.
it's awesome. It's just a
So
little
beautiful.
spark,
Yeah.
spark, spark.
Yeah.
So when people say we are God, we are God.
Yeah.
We're a
Mhm.
spark of God,
Yep.
which is we're also a spark of our soul. It just keeps, sparking out, if you will. And so your soul always resides in the sixth dimension. I'm not going to go all into the dimensions and all that, but it's from the celestial realm, and that's the home of your soul, is in that sixth dimension. And so
The
it always stays
heavens.
there. So it would be
Yes.
referred to as
Biblically,
heaven.
what's referred to as the heavens.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so now when the soul sends out a spark, it incarnates into, in this case, planet Earth, but it can incarnate in other places as well. But for our purposes here, we're going to say Earth. And then has our life experience, but it comes down with specific objectives, which we're going to run through those objectives. And that's why, purpose has been such a big part of our existence, and why life purpose is so talked about and taught about and yearned for and all these things, because it truly is part of our soul's objective of sending a spirit down here to experience a lifetime. Now, a soul can send out more than one spark at a time. And so you can have multiple sparks going out at one time, but not too many. So, it's the understanding of all this is it's so it's so big. So we're really simplifying it to really simple, so easy to understand. But ultimately, when I first heard this information, and I shared this in the book, and I actually just reread it, and you just read it because I was like, when you came with that, I'm like, there's a place in the book that talks
You know
about
what's
what
so
you're talking
crazy?
about.
Like I was reading it and
Yeah.
I was like, you're like, oh my gosh, you just downloaded
Hmm.
chapter 4 of my book. So of
Yeah.
course I go whip it out, right? I'm
Hmm.
reading this and I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, wow,
Yeah.
this is what we are supposed to be talking
Hmm.
about today. And I honestly I think back Dave and Megan, Dave and Meg, I'm so glad to have traveled. I'm so glad you guys
Yeah.
found each other because
Yeah.
through you, Lisa, I also found them.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful relationship that I personally have with them. Like I feel like I'm connected to them all the time, but we don't
Right.
really have an opportunity to talk all
Hmm.
the time, but we like they're always
Yeah.
in my
In your
realm.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's true for a lot of people. You might not be consciously thinking about people all the time, but they're kind
Right.
of part of your energetic makeup. They exist within, kind of like being in your heart, right?
Yeah.
They're
Well,
always in your heart.
in that they're here with me today, right now, with us,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's just beautiful. So anyway,
So hi, David and Meg.
hi, we love you.
And they are watching. In fact, that's David and Meg have been watching the podcast every day until they're all caught up on all of them, and they've shared it with other people, and they're watching it, making it a daily part of their routine to
Oh,
listen in on one of our podcasts. Well, that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
that's super
So
awesome. We are super grateful for you.
contributions going both ways in our lives, for sure, for sure.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
So
coming back to a book written in what 20
15
inspired in 2012, written in 2013.
launched into put out to the world in 2015. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like it's a timeless, but it's so appropriate.
Mhm.
Appropriate's not the right word. It's so
Timely.
applicable
Yeah, at any
right
time. Yeah,
now. So I'm going to
yeah.
go read it again, by the way. As I was reading this chapter, I'm
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
dude, this is some deep shit. I'm all in. It's great.
Well, you know how we roll. We roll deep.
We
So,
run. Good stuff. Trying to make sense of it
yeah.
all.
Yeah. So the soul, does have objectives by sending the spirit into the incarnation,
Mhm.
right? And now to have this understanding, there is also, the reincarnation process, and this would align with that belief system. We're not here to convince anybody on any belief systems, but that's certainly our belief system, and what aligns with what we're talking about today. So then a soul, once it returns back, which is the death process here, it moves into we move into our astral body, which is a lot of what people talk about in the near death experience. Your physical body doesn't go anywhere; it stays here and decomposes, right? Unless you
Ashes
come
to
back into
ashes,
it,
dust to dust.
dust to dust.
Yep.
And your astral body actually, has an experience. And what a lot of people have shared is the tunnel experience. So the next dimension above the third dimension, which is the dimension we live in, is the fourth dimension. And that's what a lot of people think of as hell. It's really a perception. Some people think that the third dimension is hell. I mean, quite honestly,
I
right?
think that the third dimension is yeah, I
It can
would
be
put that
hellish
in
or it can
hell.
be like
Yeah.
heaven. You can, it depends on where you're at and how you're
Just my
experiencing it.
opinion.
So how you experience the fourth dimension is going to be the same, except there's different stuff that exists in the fourth
Mhm.
dimension that can be pretty unnerving if if that's where you're coming from, a lot of that fear or love stuff. But you don't hit the tunnel goes from the fourth dimension all the way to the sixth dimension. So you bypass the sixth dimension. So you bypass the fifth dimension, which is
Mhm.
what a lot of people are talking about these days. And that's really where a lot of other kind of higher entities live and so forth. We're not going to be um, ascending to the fifth dimension. That's not even possible. What we're doing, which a lot of people talk about, what we're doing is we are elevating our awareness. We're raising our awareness. And that is so when people talk to me about, 5D and all that kind of stuff. I understand what they're saying. It's just, you know, conceptually, it's just a little bit different than how it's being described from a lot of people. But it really is, yes, we're absolutely raising our level of awareness, no
Hmm.
doubt. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
But we will, as long as we're a human being, we will stay here in the third dimension.
Well, and for me, and kind of talking on a dimensions, right? Yeah, you and I have been talking about dimensions for a very long time. There's an entire movement out there talking about uh
Yeah.
5D warfare and what does that
Mhm.
mean? And so there are so many words that used to
Yeah.
be concepts that used to make sense that now it's like what you took something
Yeah.
really cool and you ruined it with
Yeah.
words. So what you and I
Well,
are talking about
mhm.
is bringing back to the magic of what's happening right now. And the magic
Mhm.
of what's happening right now, 2024 on planet Earth in this physical incarnation, is we have this unique opportunity. It's like if you don't know what the age of Aquarius is, that would be a really fun thing for you to explore. This is not what this conversation's about, but maybe one day it might be, because
Yeah.
there's a lot playing in there as far as energies
Mhm.
go. But the more we expand our consciousness, and this is through things like for me, I'm practicing channeling. Practicing. I don't know all the clairs. I can't keep them all right. Right,
Oh, the
seeing, feeling,
clairvoyant and
hearing,
clair,
knowing.
yeah,
Right. Um,
clairaudient. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, so my superpower is that I'm a knower, but we all have these gifts. So now the more that I say I play with them, and what I mean by that is that I intentionally go in and see what pops up first. And it's now a muscle after what's happened with both my sister and my friend. Oh no, there's really something to this. Like I've always said I'm a great manifester, and I am, but why don't I put it into more of a purposeful use for humanity by practicing exercising it? So yeah, what we're talking when you're talking about dimensions, really, right now, right here, right now, how can we exercise all these muscles? Is just to raise our consciousness, expand our consciousness, know that we are so much bigger than our
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we're so heavily veiled in the third dimension, right?
Yes.
That's what a lot of
Yeah.
I think the veil is kind of lifting more and more. So we're now accessing higher information.
Hmm.
But think of it this way. This just came to me, and hopefully this works. But there's the Bible, and then there's how people interpret the Bible. Right? So with this new information that's coming in, there's new information coming in. It's not even new information, it's actually old information, but it's new to us.
Hmm.
And how it's interpreted is going to be through many different lenses,
Hmm.
right? Just like the Bible is interpreted through many different lenses.
Hmm.
So it's recognizing that we are evolving to a higher understanding, a higher awareness, and that, I mean, I've believed things in my past that shifted over time. It's like that just doesn't feel right to me. When you're talking about the clairs, the clairaudient,
Hmm.
sentient, whatever it is. Yeah, I think there's two. I think there's a knower and a feeler. I think I have those two. I don't know
Hmm.
if they're the same one or if I don't remember.
They're
That's not,
different. Those are different.
okay. Yeah, so those are the two that I have. And for a long time I was like, I want to have psychic abilities. I want to be able I have these really, these people who share really cool experiences. Well, I want to hear and I want to see. And so I felt disconnected because I didn't have those kind of experiences, but those aren't my gifts. Mine are the
Hmm.
other two. And
Hmm.
so when I recognize that, I let go of that feeling of I don't have those powers, so to speak. My powers are just different.
Hmm.
And they become more powerful over time.
Yeah.
Like you say, you're
Yeah.
you're starting to use your powers more, and just like as you say the muscle, they get stronger over time. Well, I've been tapping into these. I don't think about them as the two clairs,
Mm.
psychic ability clairs,
Mhm.
CLAIR is how they start with. But I intuition, downloads, the whole thing. I'm using them all the time through what I, just even in the
Yeah.
podcast and coaching and writing and all these things. They're just there. They're just part of my existence now.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. And so that's part of it. but feeling disconnected was part of how the book also came to be, because I, well, what I learned, through my experiences is that I chose to come into this world to feel the pain of disconnection.
Mm.
And so, which made sense because I was shy and insecure, and it's like I've talked about in the past. So that would make you feel very disconnected, not knowing who I was, and all the stuff which so many people go through. And so, but I chose to go through that pain. That was one of my assignments, if you will, from my soul. Is
Yep.
you're going to go down, you're going to do this, and then through that experience, you're going to come out on the other side and know what it feels like to be connected. And so then that experience is then where, gosh, to me, that feels like where my spiritual journey began, because it was
Mm.
all these things I was writing about. We've talked about it in the past, my dissertation to the universe. That was me feeling so disconnected. And then that led me to a mentor that helped me on my way to now my transformational path, and then meeting David. And I mean, I'm not going to go into all the details of all that, but ultimately it was my road back to, finding who I am, which is, the finding your way back is the subtitle of the book. So
Mm.
as I was finding my way back, a lot of that finding my way back was as I was writing this book, which was fascinating. There was just so many divine orchestrations, and there's so much divine energy when you start to explore the things we're talking about right now. And when it comes in, it's just so fulfilling, and it's can be so magical, and so just wow. You can be in awe of some of the things that happen in that process.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you've experienced a lot of that too. And
Yeah,
it looks like you're going to experience
yeah,
more of it.
I
Yeah.
think I think too, you launching your new workshop and really bringing in the parent thing. I didn't say this to you. I think, well, maybe I did. So, my elite youth coach, the girls coach, Coach
Mhm.
Stephanie, she wouldn't mind me talking about her.
Mhm.
She went from, she had a practice down, and she's all like us too, way into mindset and, you know, bringing in the power within. We've all wanted to go to very similar workshops together. At some point in time, we will. Um, but anyway, she moved to Phoenix, got married, all lovely. So she had two little groups. She had the core Vegas group, and then she had this group in Phoenix. And she realized, as things were naturally moving once she got married, that unless I can get the parent in, I can parent these kids. And I know this, she's been through a lot with some of the kids that she was parenting. I know because I went through it with her. But for her, it was a different experience because she was the coach, the facilitator, the inspiration to these children, who all children want that, to be inspired and to gain strength. But the minute they go home, if they're living in a toxic environment,
Yeah.
everything you do will unravel. And so now her whole program is based off of what you're doing with parents too, taking both the children and the parent, really helping the child. But there's like a once a week meeting for the parent too, which I think is like,
Crucial.
all of what we're supposed to be doing right now. Really,
Yeah. Well,
truly.
the example I used yesterday in the class, which you were there, was, uh, it's not to compare children to pets, but there is a correlation. And you think about Caesar Milan, who's the dog whisperer, and who he works with the most is the dog owner,
Mm,
even though the dog itself is misbehaving and being aggressive or whatever the dog is doing. But once the dog owner takes command and is in their power, now the dog will now follow the leader, right?
mm,
And
mhm.
which is the dog owner.
Yep.
So, but in that dynamic, it's the same thing with parenting. If you're not really solid in yourself, then you're not able to fully lead your child the way they truly need to be led, to lead them to the right kind of behaviors and understanding them on a deeper level.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So,
All
yeah.
right. Let's get back to this wonderful game of spirit, soul, humanness.
Yeah. So, if you think about like the soul's objective, um, the one of the objectives is fulfillment, which is why in our one of our podcasts we talked about that being a gauge. If you're aligned with your soul, right? The podcast is Following Your True North. We'll link it up, but ultimately that was part of that. So if you're on a spectrum of fulfillment and emptiness, the more you're aligned with your spirit, your soul, you will be experiencing a lot more fulfillment, and that's part of why. Um, you're here to experience the whole gamut of emotions and experiences and so forth. And this is really where a lot of people are. They will find their soul purpose brings them to that place of fulfillment.
Okay, I gotta jump in on this one. Ready for it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So this is my new favorite deck. My stepmom gave it to me.
Hmm.
Um, love
Yep.
her to pieces.
And
Love
that's
you,
the deck you
Carol.
gave me for Christmas.
Yeah, so I loved it so much that I gifted it to you.
Yeah,
And Following Your True North, which was our two weeks ago podcast.
I think so. Yeah.
So I got into soul fulfillment. Okay, so let's start with that premise. About 6 months ago, I'm starting to listen to. I don't follow anybody, but I love getting information. And the information I take in through podcasts is all about soul evolution, just like real, truly next level soul growth. And I found this lady named Blue through Matthias De Stefano, who's like, I don't even know how to describe him. You might want to watch one of his podcasts, right?
Mhm.
Very, very amazing human here in this incarnation. So I found this lady Blue. I really liked what she stood for, like sisterhood and really the divine feminine. And I just, anyway, I resonated with her. I sought her out. I found her website, and it looked like there was this like retreat, this women's weekend retreat. Well, um, so I just put my email address in her newsletter, and honestly, I haven't heard from her in podcasts, or she just like I just haven't heard from her since whenever that was that I submitted my information and I found her, and I was very intrigued, and she to me felt really heart centered.
Mhm.
So much younger than me, I'm sure. Um, so anyway, I get an email that this is again in this last week, came out of nowhere. Hey, we're doing a retreat the weekend of January 27th and 8th in California. And I'm like, whoa. Okay, what's up? Spirit? So what's the deal? Okay. And so I forwarded over to my husband and I said, hey, I think I really want to do this. And, and then he inquired about it and he's like, is it going to be one of those things where women bash men? And I'm like, yeah, I'm so past that.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore. But of course, like, he was part of this men's group years and years and years ago, which is all about, it was a very unhealthy group of men who got together and lived very unhealthy relationships and lives. So anyways, he said that. I said, no, I said, I think it's time for a little more soul expansion, and it presented itself to me in a way that came out of nowhere. Okay. So, he's like, well, we don't have anything going on, so do whatever. Right. So, anyway, so I've been sitting with this. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, am I supposed to go to, like, that's like an airplane travel ride, and it's supposed to be a very intense astrological weekend, but I don't stop my life for stuff like that because you can't. um but I thought, okay, let me see. So you fill out an application, and if you get, and then they pick you, and it's this whole entire thing. So um anyway, so this morning I'm like, I don't know, until I go somewhere, I don't know if I'm supposed to be there. So if universe really wants me there, the plane will be on time, the trip will be effortless, and then when I'm there, then the experience will be exactly what it is that it is fulfilling for my soul right now. And I have no doubt about that. But am I going to get there? So I'm like, I'm questioning it, right? So because I don't know, there's a million things going on. So I pulled the South card.
Ah,
So this is this morning. So I go into my
yeah.
deep meditation. I'm like, true north, I'm going south. Okay, so
Yeah, that's so
then
funny.
there,
Yeah.
isn't that so funny? Spirit is like it's kind of funny.
Mhm.
So I'm like, all right, well, you got to kind of read what it means. And you and I are using these cards very differently than I think the cards are meant to be used, but we're using them the way that we should. So
Yeah.
it says adventure. Take a risk, but an educated one. Do or see something you haven't before, as experiencing something new will help you to clear your mind and give you wonder to your heart. Look carefully at your plan. Something may be amiss. The situation may have a happy medium. It is not all or nothing. And then it goes into, going south has a slightly bad rap, but it really is a term of, used in this example of an adventure of the soul.
Mm, nice. So I picked the North card of the deck right before we did the True North podcast a couple weeks ago. We already had the podcast determined, and I pulled the not True North, but the North card,
Yep.
expansion North, whatever it's called. Yeah. So now you're pulling the South card. What's East and West?
I don't know. I haven't
We'll have to
looked.
find out.
It's
Yes.
so
Yes.
funny. So,
Yeah.
talking about, living a soul driven life or a purpose driven life
Hmm.
or a spirit driven life, how would you organize that a little bit? Maybe just for me, when we're
Well,
talking about spark and spirit and soul and.
yeah. Well, another objective of the soul is completion. So now you bring
Mm,
that, so completing your souls of all the other souls objectives, right? And the ones that you put forth in previous incarnations that you never, fully completed. And I think
mm,
that's really interesting because so many people are challenged with the complete follow through and completion on things.
mhm,
And that itself is quite a life lesson for so many people. And yet when we complete something, how do we feel? Fantastic,
mhm.
right? We feel really good when we complete things. So that's just like a motivation, or to continue to complete things, because completion is a really it's a soul objective as well as a human objective.
And I will say, you know how you did your 30-day walking meditation?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, what I'm doing right now is I am getting very clear, even though I have yet to meet my guides, I know they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am very much asking, and this is a very, while I'm not doing it the same way you've been doing it, and I say this has been going on for a few weeks now, since we got back from Big Sky, so 10 to 15 days, um, really going, all right, it's time for Sondra. I'm ready. I'm ready. Well, okay. And that's why this coming out of nowhere, I'm like, aha, I listen to you, in the midst of all this other really heaviness going on with,
Yeah.
physical death and sickness. I'm getting my answers. My answers are keep moving forward and just keep going forward, and then like all these roads are opening, and it's like it's the easiest trip, which normally I couldn't pull something off like that, like at all, but I manifested an amazing assistant. That's incredible. And
Great.
my husband is like, she's so good. I'm like, she's
Awesome.
so good. She's young. She loves kids. She's the oldest of five. So she's got all the techie stuff that I struggle with. And anyway, so like all these things are happening, and it's yeah, it's really amazing just to kind of go, I think I'm really supposed to be there, even though I'm a little scared. You know, I don't know anybody. Like not that I care. It's not about Sondra. It's about my spirit needs
Mhm.
something. I don't know what it needs, but I'm all up for whatever. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, even, when we talked about when I was doing the walk that, I was like, "Ugh, do I really want to, I don't really want to continue to do this." And then the next day I had a breakthrough. So, and I completed the 30 days and I did it. And it was just a really, again, anything we complete that, especially the more important things, but, even completing a book feels good. You feel
Yeah.
complete and filled,
Yeah.
fulfilled. So yeah,
Yeah.
and another objective is also inspiration. So not only to experience inspiration ourselves, but to inspire others, to inspire our soul group, to
Mm,
inspire, just people in our lives. And because that lifts us into our spirit. And, inspiration, one of the things that, I ask people, in fact, I asked it yesterday in the parenting class, what inspired you to be here today?
mhm,
Because what was that moment that you said, you know what? Yes to the class, or
mm,
yes to whatever it is in your life. What inspired you? Because when
mhm,
you can start making those connections, they make the connection stronger.
mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, have we not? I feel like we must have done a podcast on inspiration.
We did it with on the podcast that we were guests on, the
Oh,
Mind Your
yes.
Business podcast.
Yes,
Mind Your Own
yes, yes.
Business
I'm like,
podcast.
oh,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
so important. That's something
Yes.
that I think, I mean, while it ties into our spark and our spirit and our
Yeah.
higher soul self, um,
Hmm.
it is what moves you. Just what,
Right.
because even in all of the work I've done, you've done your 40-day walk,
Mhm.
my discipline, my just everything for me is about feeling it. And I'll go back to Miracle Monday.
Mhm.
The more I kept calling it a miracle, what I was really doing, I was reinforcing the fact I had no more nerve pain. And
Mhm.
every time I called it a miracle, my back smiled at me. I could feel I'm okay, like I'm okay. And it's a miracle. I am okay. That's a miracle. Like, and so the more I gave it the respect that it deserved, the more miracles just, yeah, inspiration,
Yeah.
feel it, to feel moved. And I mean, kind of coming back to where Alan was at yesterday, which is, my husband's heart is so big and he's trying so hard to help so many people. And in the world of business, you don't always get what you want. You can't always get what, like, that was our last week's podcast, right?
Mhm.
Um, but you can. I know you can. And I know he can. It's just he was having a day yesterday where it was very, I'm trying all these things and why does it seem like nothing's working? And so just taking some time and letting him kind of move that energy
Yeah.
and then ask him, like, what do you want it to look like?
Yeah.
How, and just me asking him that, somewhere he will start to feel it. And so there was a couple things that I said, well, why don't we do this? Because it'll take the burden of, um, for my husband, the Jewish guilt is a very real thing. And
Mhm.
so he feels really guilty that he's not providing perfection for his
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why don't we just do this? It'll make you feel better. It's a cost of doing business, but it will make him not, because in that low frequency of energy, the guilt and the shame and all that stuff, ugh, even though he's feeling it, not buried trauma from childhood, but in very real life, and he wants all these things for his people. So how can we get rid of that? Because if we can get rid of that, then we can move on and get back into creating an inspired business.
Well, yeah. So whenever I have stuff that comes up that's heavier and dense, and I even had it just recently, I shared it with you,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, okay, what I have come to understand is that when heavier stuff comes up, it needs to come up to make way for the new to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So why isn't this working? Well, if you can, if he can process, and he knows how to process, so if he can process that energy, just really just directly go into that energy and process it without any attachment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let go of whatever the resistance is around that, the need to come up with better ideas or whatever it is that
I should
he's
have
in.
him call you.
Well, that's always an option,
I always
but
I always say,
yeah.
Alan, why don't you just cheat and call Lisa? But you're right. He knows how to do it. He knows how to do it.
Accelerate the
And
process. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah. So then what happens is then letting go of the need to figure it out is going to be one of those things
Mm-hmm.
to release the energy that's keeping it kind of blocked. And so as that energy is released, then the new energy can come in And often it comes in through insight and like that inspiration, or something
Mhm.
comes in that feels like it's coming from a different place. You're not pushing to get there. You're removing what's blocking so you can allow it to come in.
Yep.
Make sense?
To me,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
And that's
Yes, it
interesting
does.
because that's another one of the not exactly, but it's close to another one of the objectives of the soul, and that's creativity.
Mm.
Because there's so much about creativity that just allows that divine energy to flow through you. So
Yes.
when we get stuck, I mean, you can think of it like writer's block. It's the same
Mhm.
type of, you're trying so hard to create something better, create something, that's impactful, whatever it is. And we get so stuck in the need to create that we actually prevent ourselves from actually having a flow of creation that comes in. And
Mhm.
that's where we're in divine flow, is the creativity flows. So when we're blocked, got to go in and do any
Mhm.
what process clears that. For me, it's the eye care approach. For you, it's the eye care approach, one of the ways. And so by doing that, it clears the energy, and then it just removes the block.
Yeah.
That's really what a lot of healing is. It's removing the blocks that keeps us out of divine flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Name of the game. Interesting that you said that creativity. So, um, when I put together the whole application and I went through the process and I could hardly, I mean, I remembered her impression on me, but I don't remember her. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I remember how she came through me. I remember signing up for her newsletter, but I can't remember anything else. And so I sat for a minute and I thought, I wonder if I should start to like, let me go binge watch a bunch of podcasts and see, right? And then I thought, you know what? I don't really feel like doing that, mostly because I don't have time. Um, but let me just check one out. And just because I couldn't remember her. So anyway, I watched her one podcast from like 12 days ago, and it was saying goodbye for now. Apparently, she became this podcaster. She's been doing it for 3.5 years. So I could probably binge watch her podcasts and take me months. Um, but I'm choosing not to do that. I'm going to go into the experience and feel it through. But she was saying how she had this experience where her name is Blue, but she changed her name from Charlotte to Blue and became this personality and forgot this other aspect of her, which is the Charlotte. So she's taking a break from podcasting so she can go and uh, create a big blanket of art. I like I'm thinking a quilt, but I'm losing the word. But that's how it feels. They're going to make these pieces, and then they're going to make this beautiful mecca of art. And that, and when you said creativity brings out more of the essence of our soul,
Yeah.
spark of our spirit soul,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's interesting because now she crossed my path, and I get the one podcast, and it's in honoring that, and I think that that's I love seeing Alan create. When he creates, it's magical. It's really, I think when any of us create, it's a magical experience. And so, yeah, I'll have a conversation with him later.
Well, even as I develop things, I often start with a creative process, more of the visual creative process, because I work that way. Plus, I have the artistic side of me, and that it inspires ideas by the visual side of, like, even with the parenting class, I have all the slides that you saw, even though some of them ended up being fuzzy, but I changed that. I corrected that in the replay. But that was all. I mean, if you look at it, it was little characters and all these things that I just created through the process, and that gave me ideas to also talk about in the parenting program, right?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how my mind works. I
Yeah.
always start off with because I used to do website design. Well, I still do for myself, but when I'm creating a program, often the bullet points come to me as I'm actually in the creative process of developing the landing page.
Mm.
So yeah, it's an interesting process. I don't know if that's a common one, but it's certainly my process,
Yeah.
and starting out with the creative side. So another objective of the soul is imperial justice, which really makes sense for today's time, because there is so much injustice in the world, and that's not the same thing as fairness, because that's a whole kind of different thing. A lot of people have the need for things to be fair, which is different than this imperial justice, which is a higher level of justice.
Imperial
And
justice to me means Mother Earth is getting ready to do some clean up on Isle Planet Human. Anyway, keep
well,
going. Imperial
yeah.
justice
So
is coming
so
in.
it's about righting our wrongs, so to speak, getting our humanity back on course again. And,
Hmm.
that's a big undertaking. So, but our spirits come down here to also do that, to right our course if we're veering, going the wrong way, so to speak, and going off course. And we've definitely been going off course a lot. I mean, it's interesting. You could probably go back, 50 years and say the same thing. So this has been an ongoing process for a long time, where we're trying to write our course, and that is part of our soul's objective, is to
Well, yeah,
to do
it
that.
on that it seems like you could go back 50 years. Don't you remember your grandparents saying like, "Oh, the world isn't it's all messed up." And my
Yeah,
grandparents said that. My parents say
yeah,
that. My husband says that to this day. Well, it's always been this way. And I'm like, "Oh, no. We are in a whole new world." And I think that, I mean, yeah, 50 years ago, I think technology has officially sped up the correction of this empirical justice for
yeah.
sure.
Hmm.
And I will not stop. And we've said this in podcasts before. Humans need to stop killing other people. That's it. We need to stop that that energy. And that is what I think we're dealing with it. My husband's dealing with every single person's dealing with it. Um, that level of, as some people call it evil, I'll just call it hatred. It's a level of
Hmm.
hatred for God's creation.
Yeah,
And I can take it one step further and say we need to stop killing the planet. And until those things stop, you know, we won't experience living in the Garden of Eden because we don't deserve it. But I
right.
think we're in this really unique time where we're getting there and we will see it. We will see, I'm already seeing it. People having a conversation about that's what needs to stop: division, isolation, and murder of other people and of this beautiful planet that has given us life.
Yeah.
So
And then
there's my
and that
empirical justice.
and that flows really well into the last one we're going to talk about today. There's more objectives, but these are some of the main ones, and that's
Mm-hmm.
purification.
Mm.
It's to which goes a lot into
Oh,
mindset,
yeah.
purifying our thoughts,
Yep.
leading with hope and love instead of fear and doubt, to
Oh,
be solution oriented, not problem oriented, killing and all that. That's a whole nother level of negativity. That's this, really strong stuff there.
yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
you can only imagine what it would be like to have a mindset where it's just okay to kill people because you don't
Blah,
value life.
blah.
Right. So to me, I see that as kind of like, all right, well, that's not, those aren't the people we're focusing on. We're focusing on the people who are, of a higher mindset that
Mm-hmm.
is looking to be able to move people in the direction of hope and love, right? Of
Love and
really
compassion.
compassion and empathy and so forth. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't people that are bridges to those types of people who have the mindset of it's okay to kill people, and all that type of stuff, because you're going to need someone in that arena as well. That's the bridge to bring some of those aren't our those aren't our people.
Yeah.
That's not our mission here.
Yeah.
No, thank you. But there are people that it is their mission. They go into like the projects, or they go into, all the different places
Mm.
where it's dangerous and whatnot. But that's a personal mission to them. But
Yeah.
ultimately, these are all these things that we're talking about. These objectives are common to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have branches off of that and how we're going to express those objectives, how we're going to achieve those objectives. But these really do come in to bring us all together. These I think there was five of them, five objectives that we just went over. Hmm.
So it's purification.
Yeah.
I think that I think that's where I think we're teetering on those two.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
really there. And um I can see a world where where love and compassion are the end result. And I mean, I can't believe some of my relationships right now in the depth of, being able to tap into my girlfriend who's ready to she's good, and really knowing she didn't go anywhere. Like I can still tap into her. Like she's, you
Yeah.
know, just because her body is gone, her spirit lives on. And
Yeah.
and
She's
so
probably in the tunnel.
she might be in the tunnel.
She
I
might be in the tunnel.
I wonder if I
Or she
should go
might have
and try to
she
find
might
her.
have like she might be still hanging around a little bit, still making her
Yeah.
departure.
Yeah.
That's sometimes what can happen is they're
Hmm.
there's no like timeline they have to meet. They don't
Yeah.
no
There is no
okay, so
time.
no pun intended. There's no deadline she has to meet. I'm sorry, that was maybe not the right thing to say, but ultimately, we're honoring her life and her death, and but also putting another perspective on it that she could very well just she's probably in a better place than a lot of people here on
Yeah.
earth are, because that's one of the common things that people experience is such a feeling of overwhelming love,
Yeah. Yes. Oh,
of
yeah. The near
intense
death
intense love.
experiences. Yeah, and if our listeners haven't listened, I mean, they're all over the internet. You could, yeah, Next
Yeah.
Level Soul podcast is an amazing. I mean, that's over and over again. Near death experiences, um, is the love that they feel when they're not in this body in this experience. And I have no doubt she's in a better place. I then I think about, my dad's journey and the human experience and where he's at right now. He's in the space that you're talking about. While it's not,
Mhm.
it's very dangerous, and yet he's still alive. And so my stepmom and I really have had conversations about, you're like, wow, how is he still alive after 4 years of living homeless as a drug addict on the streets of LA? How is he still alive?
Yeah.
Um, but he's got his soul has a journey right now, and who knows what he's doing to people. I believe my dad had a good heart, just
Mhm.
hurt people, and he just didn't want to get in touch with what it meant to be Thomas Lee Nardini. Sorry, I'll
Mhm.
throw it out there because he didn't care. He probably won't watch the podcast. But anyway, honoring who
Mhm.
he has an absolute um, mission in this experience. And it's a dark place. It's not where you and me are going or any of
Yeah.
our listeners, but we all have a purpose here. And
Yeah.
so,
And
so
really feeling disconnected. I mean, talk about, so
yeah,
when people go into places like we're talking about, like killing people or just lacking compassion and just, giving up, they're so far away from who they actually are. They're
oh
so disconnected from their heart. They're so disconnected from their spirit, which means they're disconnected from their soul and God and all that. And that reunion,
yeah.
the
Hmm.
reunion of all that, to have conscious reunion of aligning with your spirit and your soul and God is why it's such a powerful experience.
Yeah, and I think that our listeners and people around me, and I'm experiencing it every day. All my conversations with random people, whether it's through my business and calls I have to make, or random people at airports, or who you sit next to at a party. We already talked about my experience with one at the party. Like, I think people are yearning, and this crosses all religions. It crosses, all ethnicities. It doesn't matter where you're from. We are all going. I'm yearning for the inspiration. I'm yearning for the love and the compassion. And I have nothing but compassion. I don't have any anger left. Like, I just I'm kind of shocked by that after so many years of really struggling with some of the stuff going on inside me. But that's because this is where we're at now, and it's what we so desperately desire. At least that's what you desperately desire, I desperately desire, and what we hope to give to anybody who's going to listen.
Yeah, for sure.
Love and prayers. Oh my gosh. Well, we forgot to say this. Did you have any other last final inspiration?
I think that's we covered it. We covered
We
what I
covered
got
it.
today.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see what we got for y'all next week. So if you are so inspired to hit like, share, and possibly subscribe, and comment would be even better, because that's how we really, some of y'all your comments are amazing and we really appreciate them. So and we listen. So,
Yes.
all right. Have a blessed week, everybody.